Captain Tejo stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Sunrise, watching the stars blur past as they traveled through jump space. He had made this journey 100 times before, carrying messages between Earth and the Galactic Coalition. It was peaceful work, safe work, the kind of work that made him forget what his great-grandfather had told him about the old days. Humans used to be warriors, the old man had said. We fought for everything, but now we smile and trade. Maybe that's better. Tejo wasn't sure anymore. 200 years had passed since Earth joined the Galactic Coalition. It had been a strange time for humanity. They learned quickly that other species saw them as oddities. Humans could breathe air that would poison a Vryn. They could survive temperatures that would freeze a Kelthir solid. They healed from wounds that would kill most other beings. Deathworlders, the aliens called them. Earth was classified as a Class 9 death world, one of the most dangerous planets in known space. But humans were also polite. They followed the rules. They didn't start fights. The galaxy decided humans were harmless. In her laboratory on Harmony 7 space station, Dr. Hyjin was studying alien plant samples when her communication screen flickered to life. Her colleague, a floating jellyfish-like Kelthir named Velna, appeared on the screen. "Have you heard the news from the Outer Rim?" Velna asked, her voice translator making soft bubbling sounds. "No, I've been working all day," Hyjin replied, setting down her tools. "There was an attack. Raiders hit a colony world." Hyjin felt her stomach tighten. "Which world?" "One of yours. New Jeju, I think they called it." The datapad slipped from Hyejin's fingers and clattered on the floor. New Jeju was her sister's home. Her sister Min-ah lived there with her husband and 2 children. 40,000 humans had made that world their home, farming and building and living peaceful lives far from Earth. "What happened?" Hyejin whispered. Velna's tentacles drooped in sympathy. "The harvesters came. They took everyone, the whole colony. I'm so sorry." On Earth, in the Grand Coalition Embassy, Ambassador G1 stood before the Galactic Council's holographic projection. She had been arguing for 3 hours. Her voice was hoarse. Her eyes were red from crying and rage. "You must do something," she said again. 40,000 human civilians were kidnapped. 40,000. There are children among them, families. They did nothing wrong. The insectoid Vryn counselor clicked his mandibles dismissively. "The Outer Rim is outside Coalition jurisdiction. The harvesters operate in unclaimed space. We cannot interfere." "Cannot or will not?" Jiwan's hands clenched into fists. The crystalline Taurian counselor's voice chimed like breaking glass. "The political situation is complex. Military action would destabilize the region." 40,000 lives, G1 repeated. "And you offer me political excuses." "We sympathize with your loss," the Vryn counselor said. "But the matter is closed." The holographic projection winked out, leaving G1 alone in the empty chamber. She stood there for a long moment, trembling. Then she pulled out her communicator and sent a single encrypted message to Earth's military headquarters. It contained only 2 words. They refused. Admiral Sungmin received the message in his office deep beneath the surface of Earth. He sat in darkness for several minutes, reading those 2 words again and again. Then he stood and walked to a wall panel. He pressed his palm against it and spoke a code phrase that hadn't been used in 2 centuries. "Ghost Protocol. Authorization Sungmin Alpha 7. The wall slid open, revealing a room that officially didn't exist. Inside were servers and communication arrays, all connected to networks the Coalition knew nothing about. Sungmin sat down at the main console and began typing. Within minutes, messages were flying to Mars, to Titan, to Luna, to every human colony in known space. They were coded messages that only humans would understand. They spoke of old protocols, old plans, old weapons that had been hidden away when Earth joined the Coalition. The messages all said the same thing. The treaty is suspended. Operation Fierce Dawn is active. On military bases across human space, soldiers who had never expected to see real combat began suiting up. In warehouses that hadn't been opened in generations, lights flickered on. In shipyards hidden in asteroid belts, construction began on vessels that used designs the Coalition had banned. Humanity was going to war. Captain Tejo received the recall order while his ship was still 3 days from Earth. He read it twice, unable to believe what he was seeing. Then he changed course and pushed his engines to maximum burn. Dr. Hai Jin watched from the observation deck of Harmony 7 as human ships began moving throughout the sector. They weren't following standard traffic patterns. They were regrouping, forming fleets, moving with purpose. Her Kelthier colleague Velna floated beside her. "What are your people doing?" "I don't know," Hyejin lied. But she did know. Every human knew, deep in their DNA. It was the same thing their ancestors had done when threatened. The same thing their species had always done. They were hunting. News traveled fast through the galaxy. Within days, every species knew that something had changed. Human diplomatic ships were returning home. Human trade vessels were disappearing from commercial routes. Human colony worlds were going silent, not responding to standard communications. The galactic news networks showed footage of Earth. Military drills were happening in the open now. Humans were training in combat gear, running through simulations, preparing for something. Alien observers watched in confusion and growing fear. These were the same humans who had been so peaceful for 200 years. The same humans who smiled and traded and followed every coalition rule. But now, those humans were moving with deadly purpose. Now they weren't smiling. On New Jeju, or what was left of it, the empty streets echoed with silence. The harvesters had stripped the colony bare, taking every human they could find. They sold some to slavery rings, others they kept for experiments. The harvester warlord Vrekash had laughed when he heard about the coalition's refusal to help. "Humans," he growled to his second-in-command. "They're soft, civilized. They won't do anything." Vrekash had raided 100 worlds. He knew how the galaxy worked. Victims complained. Politicians debated. Nothing ever happened. He didn't know that this time was different. He didn't know that humans had been hiding what they really were. He didn't know that every human civilian was a warrior's descendant. That every human child learned about the old wars. That every human carried the genetic memory of 10,000 years of survival on a world that tried to kill them every single day. The harvesters had made a mistake. They had hurt the humans' pack, and now the pack was coming. Admiral Sung Min stood in the command center and watched status reports flood in. 300 warships ready. 5,000 Special Forces soldiers volunteering for the assault teams. Weapon systems coming online that hadn't been touched in 2 centuries. He opened a channel to all human military forces. "For 200 years, he said, we have been peaceful. We smiled. We traded. We followed their rules. And when our people needed help, the galaxy turned away." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Today, we remind them what we are. We are the children of Earth. We are Deathworlders, and they are about to learn what that really means." Across human space, soldiers roared in approval. Ships began jumping toward the outer rim. The galaxy was about to witness something it had never seen before. Humanity unleashed. The warehouse on Mars had been sealed for 193 years. Colonel Dong Hyun watched as the massive doors groaned open, revealing rows upon rows of equipment that most humans thought had been destroyed. Kinetic weapons, chemical agents, nuclear warheads, biological warfare systems. Every tool of war that the coalition had banned, thinking humanity had disposed of them. Humanity had lied. "Get everything loaded," Dong Hyun ordered his team. "We move in 72 hours. A young soldier named Hyun-sik stared at the weapons with wide eyes. "Sir, I thought we destroyed all of this when we joined the coalition." Dong Hyun picked up an assault rifle, checking its mechanisms. Still perfect after 2 centuries of storage. "The politicians promised we would. But the generals had a different plan. They knew that someday we might need to be what we really are." "And what's that, sir?" "Survivors, predators, warriors." Dong Hyun handed the rifle to Hyun-sik. "Your great-great-grandparents conquered Earth. Every ecosystem, every climate, every threat. That's in your blood. Time to remember it." On Earth, in a secret facility beneath the Pacific Ocean, engineer Young Mi stood before a holographic display of ship schematics. She had spent 20 years designing these retrofits in secret, knowing they might never be used. Now her designs were being built in every human shipyard. The Coalition built ships for speed and efficiency. They used energy shields and plasma weapons. Their designs assumed everyone followed the same rules. Young Mi's designs assumed no rules at all. She watched as construction drones attached armor plating to the hull of a civilian transport, transforming it into a warship. Missile tubes were being installed. Railguns were being mounted. Point defense systems were being activated. Admiral Sung Min entered the facility and stood beside her. "How many can we have ready?" 300 combat-ready vessels in 3 days, Young Mi replied. "Another 500 within 2 weeks. They won't be pretty, but they'll be effective." "The Coalition ships are more advanced," Sung Min noted. Young Mi smiled grimly. "Their ships are built for civilized warfare. Ours are built to win. There's a difference." She pulled up a comparison chart. Coalition vessels relied on shields and energy weapons. They expected battles to follow protocols, with warnings and formal challenges. Young Mi's ships were designed differently. They could ram. They could deploy chemical weapons in atmosphere. They could use nuclear devices in close combat. "They've never seen anything like this," Young Mi said. "They don't know how to fight dirty." "But we do," Sung Min agreed. Captain Tae-ho arrived on Earth 3 days after receiving the recall order. He expected to return to his diplomatic post. Instead, he was escorted to a military briefing room deep underground. The room was filled with human officers he'd never seen before. Some wore uniforms from branches of military he didn't know existed. Others wore civilian clothes but moved like soldiers. Admiral Sung Min stood at the front of the room. "Thank you all for coming. Some of you are wondering why you're here. The answer is simple. We're going to get our people back." A holographic star map appeared, showing the route to Harvester territory. "The Harvesters have 40,000 human civilians. They think we're going to file complaints and cry. They think we're civilized." Sung Min's eyes were cold. "They're about to learn that civilization is a choice, and they've made us choose differently." Tae-ho felt something stirring in his chest. Something he'd never felt before. It was anger, yes, but also something older. Something primal. "What are our orders?" he asked. "You're taking command of the Fierce Mercy," Sung Min replied. "She's a retrofit cargo hauler. Armor plating, kinetic weapons, and a ramming prow. Your mission is to lead the fleet into Harvester space and bring our people home. And if the Harvesters resist, then you teach them why Earth is classified as a death world." Dr. Hyojin received a message from her sister Minna. It was pre-recorded, sent days before the attack on New Jeju. Minna was smiling in the video, holding her youngest daughter. "Hey, big sister," Minna said cheerfully. "We just finished planting the new crop. The kids love it here. You should visit more often." Hyojin watched the video 3 times, crying harder each time. Then she received another message. This one was from Earth's military command. "Dr. Hyojin, your expertise in xenobiology is required. Report to Fleet Command immediately." She almost deleted it. She was a scientist, not a soldier. But then she thought about Mina and the kids. She thought about 40,000 humans in Harvester cages. 12 hours later, she was on a transport heading to Earth. The briefing room at Fleet Command was different from any laboratory she'd ever seen. Weapons schematics covered the walls. Battle simulations played on screens. And standing at the center was a human general she'd never heard of. "Dr. Hyojin," the general greeted her. "We need your knowledge of Harvester biology. How do we hurt them?" Hyojin stared at him. "I'm a researcher. I study life, I don't destroy it. Your sister is in a Harvester prison ship right now," the general said quietly. "Her children are probably in cages. Still want to just study life?" Hyojin closed her eyes. When she opened them, something had changed. "What do you need to know?" "Everything. Weak points, environmental vulnerabilities, chemical sensitivities, psychological fears. Everything." Hyojin sat down at a terminal and began typing. 2 hours later, she had compiled a database of every way to hurt, terrify, or kill a Harvester. Toxins that would make their blood boil. frequencies that would disable their sensory organs, psychological tactics that would break their pack structures. "You're very thorough," the general observed. "I'm human," Hyejin replied coldly. "We're good at killing things. We just usually choose not to." Across human space, the transformation continued. Civilian freighters became troop carriers. Mining ships became bomber craft. Even the luxury cruise liners were being retrofitted with weapon systems. The coalition sent diplomatic messages demanding to know what humans were doing. Earth's government replied with a simple statement: internal military exercises, nothing to concern yourselves with. But everyone knew it was a lie. On the Galactic Coalition headquarters station, ambassadors from 100 species gathered to watch the human fleet assembling. The sight was terrifying. 300 warships, all moving in perfect formation. Thousands of smaller craft, support vessels, medical ships, prison transports waiting for rescued captives. The Vryn counselor who had refused to help clicked his mandibles nervously. They wouldn't dare attack the harvesters. That would violate 12 different treaties. The Taurian counselor's voice chimed uncertainly. "Perhaps we should reconsider our position. Offer assistance." "Too late for that," Ambassador Jiwan said, entering the chamber. She looked different now. Harder. "You had your chance to help. You chose politics over lives. Now we handle it our way." "This is madness," the Vryn counselor protested. "The harvesters have a fleet of 5,000 ships. You have 300. This is suicide." Jiwan smiled, and it wasn't a friendly expression. "You're thinking like someone from a garden world. You think numbers matter. You think technology matters. But you forget something important." "What's that?" "We're from Earth. We evolved fighting everything. Predators, diseases, ice ages, each other. We're the only species in this galaxy that hunted its megafauna to extinction for sport. The only species that invented 100 ways to kill itself and survived them all. The only species that looks at a mountain and decides to climb it just because it's there." She leaned forward, her eyes blazing. "You want to know why we'll win? Because for the harvesters, this is conquest. For us, this is family. And humans don't leave family behind." The chamber fell silent. In orbit above Mars, Captain Tejo stood on the bridge of the Fierce Mercy and watched his new ship come to life. She wasn't beautiful, she wasn't elegant, but she was deadly. "All systems online," his tactical officer reported. "Weapons armed, armor integrity at 100%. We're ready, sir." Tejo looked at the fleet assembling around him. 300 ships, 5,000 soldiers. One mission. "Send a message to all ships," he ordered. "We jump in 1 hour. Target, Harvester Home System. Rules of engagement, overwhelming force. No mercy for those who harm civilians. No quarter for slavers." He paused, thinking about his great-grandfather's words. "Maybe peace was better," he whispered, "but they took that choice away from us." The fleet jumped into dark space, heading for war. Behind them, Earth watched and waited. Ahead of them, the harvesters had no idea what was coming. Humanity had been peaceful for 200 years, but peace was not weakness. It was a gift, a choice. And that gift had just been revoked. The Harvester Home System of Gravik 9 had never been attacked before. It was protected by thousands of automated defense platforms, 5,000 warships, and the arrogance of beings who had never known fear. Warlord Vrekash sat in his command throne, reviewing the latest reports from his slaver operations. The humans from New Jeju were selling well. Some had already been shipped to labor camps. Others were being held for experimental purposes. "Warlord," his tactical officer interrupted, "we're detecting jump signatures at the system's edge." "How many ships?" Vrekash asked, barely interested. 300, sir. They're broadcasting coalition identification codes. Human origin." Vrekash laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. 300? The humans brought 300 ships? Against 5,000? Should we sound the alert? "No," Vrekash dismissed the concern. "Let them come. We'll add their ships to our salvage, and their crews to our stock." He opened a communication channel. "Human vessels. This is Warlord Vrekash. Turn around now and I'll only keep half of your ships. Refuse, and I'll keep everything, including you. The response came immediately, transmitted across all frequencies so everyone in the system could hear. Harvester Fleet. This is Captain Tejo of the Human Expeditionary Force. You have 1 hour to return our people. All 40,000, alive and unharmed. Rikash laughed again. Or what, human? Tejo's voice was cold. Or we come get them. And when we're done, your empire won't exist anymore. Brave words from someone outnumbered 16 to 1. You're not outnumbered, Tejo replied. You're surrounded by angry humans. The communication cut off. Vrekash ordered his fleet to intercept positions. This would be amusing. The humans would realize their mistake soon enough. He had no idea he'd already made his last mistake. The human fleet didn't wait for the hour to expire. They attacked immediately, moving faster than any coalition vessel should be able to move. They weren't following standard battle protocols. They weren't broadcasting formal challenges. They weren't waiting for positioning. They were hunting. The first Harvester defense platform exploded in silence, destroyed by a kinetic projectile traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. Then another. Then 10 more. The humans were using weapons the Coalition had banned centuries ago. Return fire, Vrekash ordered. Destroy them. But the human ships weren't where the Harvester sensors said they should be. They used Earth tactics, strategies developed fighting each other for thousands of years. They split into small groups. They used asteroids for cover. They appeared where they shouldn't be possible. Captain Tejo watched from the bridge of the Fierce Mercy as his fleet tore into the Harvester defenses. Target their command ships. Sun He, coordinate the assault. The ship's tactical AI, programmed with 200 years of suppressed military doctrine, responded instantly. Calculating optimal attack patterns, transmitting to all ships, probability of success, 97%. I'll take those odds, Tejo said. All ships, engage at will. Colonel Dong Hyun's assault ship slammed into a Harvester carrier, latching onto the hull with magnetic clamps. Within seconds, his team was cutting through the outer armor with plasma torches. Breach in 30 seconds, Dong Hyun reported, checking his weapon. Behind him, 50 soldiers waited, armed with weapons designed for close combat in hostile environments. The hull gave way. Atmosphere rushed out of the Harvester ship. The Harvesters inside scrambled for environmental suits. Dong Hyun and his team didn't need suits. Humans could survive in low pressure for several minutes. Long enough? They poured through the breach, fighting in conditions that would kill most species. The Harvesters fired back with plasma weapons, but humans were harder to kill than they expected. Even wounded humans kept fighting. Secure this deck, Dong Hyun ordered. Find the prisoner holds. Young soldier Hyun Sik moved with his squad through the corridors. They encountered Harvester guards and dealt with them efficiently. No hesitation, no mercy. These were the beings who had taken human children. Found them, someone shouted over the comm. I found our people. Dong Hyun reached the holding bay and saw hundreds of humans in cages. They were dirty, scared, but alive. When they saw the human soldiers, they started crying and shouting. Get them out, Dong Hyun ordered. All of them, now. A young girl, maybe 6 years old, reached through the bars toward him. Are you here to take us home? Dong Hyun knelt down and opened the cage. Yes, we're taking everyone home. My mom said you would come. She said humans don't leave each other behind. Your mom was right. In space, the battle was going poorly for the Harvesters. Their superior numbers meant nothing. The human ships moved like predators, striking weak points, disappearing before counterattacks could land. A Harvester battlecruiser tried to ram a human destroyer. The human ship didn't evade. Instead, it released a spread of nuclear devices and detonated them at point-blank range. Both ships were destroyed, but the human crew had evacuated in the seconds before impact. Vrekash watched in horror as his fleet disintegrated. How are they doing this? They're using primitive weapons. His tactical officer was panicking. They're not fighting like coalition forces, sir. They're using prohibited tactics, chemical weapons, kinetic bombardment, suicide runs. They don't follow any rules. Then we adapt. The command center shook as something impacted the station. Then again. And again. "What is that?" Rekash demanded. "The human flagship, sir. It's ramming us." The captain evacuated his bridge crew and set the ship on a collision course. "That's insane." "That's humans, sir." Captain Tejo floated in space, watching his ship tear through the command station's armor. He'd ejected in an escape pod seconds before impact, along with most of his crew. The Fierce Mercy was now a missile, and it struck with devastating effect. A recovery ship picked him up minutes later. The pilot grinned at him. "Nice flying, sir." "Get me to another ship," Tejo ordered. "We're not done yet." Dr. Haijin coordinated the medical response from a hospital ship at the edge of the battle. Rescued humans were being brought aboard constantly. Many were injured. All were traumatized. Her sister Mina arrived on the third wave of rescues. Hyejin ran to her, embracing her tightly. "The kids?" Hyejin asked desperately. "Safe. Colonel Donghyun's team found us. They found all of us." Mina was crying. "They really came for us." "Of course we did," Hyejin said. "We're human. That's what we do." The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, the Harvester fleet was destroyed. Their command station was captured. Their slave operations were in ruins. The humans had lost 43 ships and 1,247 soldiers. But they had saved all 40,000 captives. Warlord Vrikash was dragged before a human tribunal on his own captured station. He was bound in chains, surrounded by human soldiers with weapons pointed at him. Colonel Dong-hyun stood as the ranking officer. "Vrekash, you are charged with crimes against humanity, kidnapping, slavery, torture, murder. How do you plead?" "You have no authority here," Vrekash spat. "The coalition will never allow this." "The coalition had their chance to help," Dong-hyun replied coldly. "They chose politics. We chose family. Your trial is being broadcast across the entire galaxy. Everyone will see what happens when you threaten human civilians." The trial lasted 2 hours. The evidence was overwhelming. Testimony from survivors, data from captured computers, video footage of the atrocities. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. "The sentence is death," Dong-hyun announced. "To be carried out immediately." "You can't do this," Rekash shrieked. "This isn't civilized." "You're right," Dong-hyun agreed. "It isn't. But you didn't treat our people with civilization. You treated them like animals, like property. Now you face justice from the species you underestimated." Vrekash was executed by firing squad 30 minutes later. The entire execution was broadcast across the galaxy, along with Dong-hyun's final words. "Let this be a lesson to anyone watching. Humans are peaceful. We prefer peace. We've spent 200 years being civilized. But we're from Earth. We're Deathworlders. And if you threaten our families, our children, our people, we will find you. We will stop you. And we won't show the mercy you denied to those we love." The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, every species watched in stunned silence. The Harvesters, one of the most feared slaver empires in known space, had been destroyed in 4 hours by a species everyone thought was harmless. On Earth, Admiral Sungmin received the battle reports. Complete victory. All captives recovered. The Harvester Empire was collapsing as their remaining territories descended into chaos. "Send the fleet home," he ordered. Mission accomplished. But as the human ships began their journey back to Coalition space, everyone knew something fundamental had changed. The galaxy had seen what humans were really capable of when pushed too far. The age of peaceful humanity was over. The age of respect had begun. And in the dark spaces between the stars, every slaver, every raider, every petty warlord suddenly reconsidered their plans. Because now they knew the truth. Humans weren't civilized because they were weak. They were civilized because they chose to be. And that choice could be revoked. The Coalition Council chambers on Station Lumina had never been so crowded. Representatives from every member species filled the galleries, all of them wanting to witness what would happen next. The humans had won their battle, but now they faced a different kind of fight. Ambassador Ji Wan stood alone at the center of the chamber floor. Above her, arranged in a circular pattern, sat the council members from the 3 great powers and 12 minor species. Every eye was on her. Councillor Therix, the Vryn representative, clicked his mandibles sharply. Ambassador G1 of Earth, humanity stands accused of 47 violations of coalition law. You used prohibited weapons. You ignored diplomatic protocols. You executed prisoners without proper trial. How do you answer these charges? G1 looked up at him calmly. I answer them with a question, Counselor. Where were you? Excuse me? Where were you when 40,000 human civilians were kidnapped? When children were torn from their parents? When my government begged this council for help? Her voice grew stronger. You were here. Voting no. Citing jurisdiction. Offering sympathy but no action. The Outer Rim is outside coalition authority, Therix protested. Then so is what we did, G1 replied. You can't have it both ways. Either the coalition has authority there, in which case you failed to use it, or it doesn't, in which case you have no right to judge our actions. The chamber erupted in argument, species shouting at each other. Some agreed with G1, others demanded humanity be punished. The crystalline Taurian counselor chimed loudly, bringing silence. Order, we will have order. She turned her faceted surface toward G1. The manner of your victory was disturbing to many species. You used weapons we thought were destroyed, chemical agents, kinetic bombardment, nuclear devices in close combat. These are tools of barbarism. No, Admiral Sungmin's voice rang out from the gallery. They're tools of survival. He walked down to stand beside G1, his uniform marking him as Earth's highest military authority. You want to talk about barbarism, Counselor? Let me tell you about barbarism. Barbarism is watching children being sold into slavery while you debate politics. Barbarism is refusing to help because it's inconvenient. You violated every principle of civilized warfare, Therix insisted. Your principles, Sungmin shot back, developed on garden worlds where the worst threat was a rainstorm. You've never had to fight for survival. You've never had to make hard choices. You created rules for warfare that assume everyone is as soft as you are. And you're not soft, the Taurian counselor observed. No, we're from Earth. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. We survived ice ages. We survived predators that could swallow us whole. We survived diseases that killed millions. We're still here because we're very good at one thing: surviving. And sometimes, survival isn't pretty. Dr. Hai-Jin was called to testify next. She approached the floor nervously, uncomfortable in the formal setting. Dr. Hai-Jin, Therix began, you're a scientist, a researcher, yet you helped plan the attack on Harvester forces. You provided data on how to most effectively harm their species. Why? Hai-Jin's hands trembled slightly. Because they took my sister. They took her children. And this council, this civilized council, told me there was nothing that could be done. So you abandoned science for violence? No, Hai-Jin said firmly. I use science for protection. That's what humans do. We study, we learn, and when necessary, we apply that knowledge to defend our own. She pulled up a holographic display. You want to know what makes humans different? I'll show you. The display showed comparative data. Human tolerance for temperature extremes, human healing rates, human resistance to toxins, human endurance in low oxygen environments. Every other species in this council evolved on worlds you call Class 1 or Class 2, garden worlds, gentle places. Earth is Class 9, the second highest danger rating in known space. We didn't just survive there, we thrived. We conquered every ecosystem. We reached the top of every food chain. She zoomed in on specific data. A human can lose 30% of their blood and keep fighting. We can survive without food for weeks. We can adapt to environments that would kill 90% of known species. And you know what the scariest part is? What? The Taurian counselor asked quietly. We're not even the deadliest things on our planet. When we evolved, we weren't apex predators. We were prey. We survived by being smarter, more adaptable, and more determined than things that were bigger and stronger. That's what you're dealing with. A species that evolved being hunted. We know what it's like to be victims. and we refuse to ever be victims again. The chamber was silent. Counselor Velith, the Kelthir representative who had always been sympathetic to humanity, spoke up. What would you have had them do, Counselor Therix? Submit to the Harvester's mercy? Hope for eventual diplomatic solutions while their people suffered? There are procedures, Therix insisted weakly. Your procedures failed, Velith replied, and humans did what any species would do when their young are threatened. They fought back. The only difference is that humans are better at fighting than we ever imagined. Captain Tejo was questioned about the battle itself. He stood straight and answered every question honestly. You deliberately rammed your ship into the Harvester command station, Therix accused. That's a suicide attack. Barbaric. I evacuated my crew first, Tejo replied, and it was the most effective way to disable their command structure. We achieved our objective with minimal casualties. But you were willing to die. I'm willing to die for my people, for my species. That's not barbaric, Counselor. That's called duty. Don't your soldiers feel the same? Therix fell silent. The truth was, most coalition species fought wars through drones and distant weapon systems. The concept of personal sacrifice was foreign to them. You used chemical weapons, the Taurian counselor said. Weapons specifically banned by coalition treaty. We never signed that treaty, Tejo pointed out. We agreed to abide by it as a courtesy. But when courtesy is answered with the kidnapping of 40,000 civilians, that agreement is void. So, you acknowledge breaking your word? No. We acknowledge that our word was conditional on yours. You promised the coalition would protect all member species. You broke that promise first. The interrogation continued for hours. Finally, Therix called for a vote. Humanity must be punished for these violations. All in favor? 3 counselors raised their hands. The 3 great powers, wanting to maintain their control over how wars were fought. All opposed? 12 hands rose, every minor species representative. Therix stared in shock. This is irregular. These charges are serious. So is abandoning allies, Velith said coldly. We vote against punishment. In fact, we propose something different. What? Therix demanded. We propose that humanity be given a permanent seat on this council, with full voting rights and veto power. The chamber erupted in chaos again. Therix was shouting. The Taurian counselor was chiming frantically. But the minor species representatives stood firm. You want to give them more power? Therix cried. After what they've done? Because of what they've done, Velith corrected. For 200 years, humanity has been peaceful, patient. They followed every rule. And when they needed help, the great powers abandoned them. Yet humanity didn't abandon their own people. That's the kind of species we want on this council. A representative from a small mammalian species stood. 3 cycles ago, the harvesters raided our colony. We begged for help. You said the same things you told the humans. Nothing could be done. We lost 2,000 people. But today, the harvesters are destroyed. The humans did in 4 hours what this council couldn't do in 2 centuries. We vote yes. Another representative stood. My species has lost citizens to slavers for 50 years. Every time we were told to be patient, to trust the process. But the humans showed us a different way. They showed us that strength, properly applied, protects the weak. We vote yes. One by one, the minor species declared their support. They'd all suffered. They'd all been told to wait, to trust, to hope. And they'd all watched as humanity chose action over words. The vote was finalized. Humanity would join the Security Council with full authority. The charges would be dropped. Therix slumped in his seat. This is a mistake. You're giving power to a dangerous species. No, Velith replied. We're giving power to a species that uses it to protect people. There's a difference. Later, in a private meeting room, Admiral Sungmin sat across from Ambassador Jiwan. They'd won, but both looked exhausted. What now? Jiwan asked. Now we prove them right, Sungmin replied. Half the council fears us. The other half wants to hire us. We need to show them we're not conquerors. We're protectors. And if someone else threatens human civilians? Sungmin's expression hardened. Then we remind them of Gravik 9, gently at first. But if necessary... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Across the galaxy, the message had been received loud and clear. Humans were peaceful. They preferred diplomacy. They followed rules and protocols, but humans were also Deathworlders. They protected their families with a ferocity that shocked the civilized galaxy, and anyone who forgot that would learn the lesson the Harvesters had learned. The hard way. In her quarters, Dr. Hyejin received a video message from her sister. Min-Ah was back on New Jeju, helping rebuild. The children were playing in the background, laughing and happy. "Thank you," Min-Ah said in the message. "Thank you for not giving up on us, for not accepting the council's answer, for being human." Hyejin smiled through tears. That's what they were. Human, from a deadly world. Survivors. Protectors. Warriors when necessary. Peaceful when possible. The galaxy would learn to live with that, or learn from the Harvester's mistake. Either way, humanity's place in the cosmos had changed forever. 5 years had passed since the day humans reminded the galaxy what they were. 5 years since the Harvester War. 5 years since everything changed. Admiral Taeho stood on the bridge of the Coalition Defense Fleet flagship Unity. He'd been promoted 3 times since Gravik 9. Now he commanded a fleet of mixed species, all trained in the tactics that humans had developed over thousands of years of warfare. "Admiral," his tactical officer called out. She was a young Kelthir named Sola, one of the first aliens to complete human military training. "We're receiving a distress call from the outer colonies. Raiders attacking a civilian station." "What species are the civilians?" Taeho asked. "Mixed. Humans, Vrin, Torian, and several others. Response time? 12 minutes if we jump now." Taeho didn't hesitate. "All ships, battle stations, we jump in 2 minutes. Show these raiders what happens when you attack Coalition civilians." The fleet jumped. When they arrived, the raiders took one look at the human-led force and immediately surrendered. They'd heard the stories. They knew what humans did to those who harmed civilians. The colony was saved without a single shot fired. That happened more and more often now. The mere presence of human forces was enough to stop most threats. Dr. Hyejin walked through the halls of the Galactic Military Academy on Station Lumina. She was a guest lecturer now, teaching interspecies combat biology. Her classroom was always full. Today's lesson was about human physiology. She pulled up a hologram of a human body. "Humans aren't special because we're violent," she told the class of mixed species cadets. "Every species can be violent. We're special because we understand violence. We've studied it for our entire history. We know its costs, its benefits, its consequences." A young Vrin student raised a claw. "Professor, is it true that humans fought each other for thousands of years before joining the Coalition?" "Yes," Hyejin confirmed. "We had countless wars. Nation against nation. Ideology against ideology. We perfected the art of killing our own kind. And you know what we learned from that? What? That war is terrible. That it destroys everything it touches. That it should only be used as a last resort." She zoomed in on a human heart. "This is why humans fought so hard for peace when we joined the galaxy. Because we knew what war truly meant. We'd lived it." "But you still fight," another student observed. "When we must," Hyejin agreed. "When there's no other choice. When innocents are threatened. But we prefer peace. We always prefer peace. That's what makes us different. Not our capacity for violence, but our restraint in using it." The students listened intently. 5 years ago, aliens had feared humans. Now they studied them, learned from them, respected them. Ambassador Ji-won sat in the Coalition Security Council chambers. She was a permanent member now, with the same authority as the great powers. The other counselors had learned to listen when she spoke. "The Krex Federation is requesting military assistance," Therix reported. "Their border colonies are being raided by an unknown hostile force." "Military composition of the hostile force?" Ji-won asked. "Approximately 200 ships. Advanced weapons. They've hit 3 colonies in the past month." "Proposed response?" Therix hesitated. 5 years ago, he would have suggested diplomatic channels and patience, but he'd learned. I recommend we deploy the Coalition Defense Initiative, human-led forces with mixed species support. Ji-won nodded. Agreed, but I want to try something first. Send them a message. Show them footage from Gravik 9. Explain what happens when you attack Coalition citizens. Give them 24 hours to withdraw. And if they refuse, then Admiral Taeho handles it. The message was sent. 23 hours later, the hostile force withdrew from Coalition space. No battle was necessary. The memory of what humans had done was enough. Counselor Velith approached Ji-won after the meeting. You've changed the galaxy, you know. For 2 centuries, the Coalition solved problems with endless debates. Now we solve them with deterrence. Is that a criticism? Ji-won asked. No, it's an observation. Peace maintained by fear is still peace. Velith's tentacles rippled thoughtfully. Though I wonder if the galaxy truly understands what you are. What do you mean? They see your strength, your weapons, your victories, but they don't see the restraint. They don't understand that every time you choose not to use your full power, you're making a choice. A hard choice. Ji-won smiled sadly. They'll understand eventually. Or they'll learn the hard way. In a training facility on Mars, Private Yunsik watched as a squad of Vryn soldiers struggled through a combat simulation. They were trying to clear a hostile vessel, but they kept bunching up, moving too slowly, exposing themselves to crossfire. Stop, Yunsik called out. The simulation froze. He'd survived the Harvester War and stayed in the military, becoming an instructor. You're thinking like Vryn. You need to think like predators. One of the Vryn soldiers clicked his mandibles in frustration. But we're not predators. We're merchants, traders. Your ancestors were predators, Hyunsik corrected. Every species was at some point. You've just forgotten. Let me show you. He entered the simulation himself, moving through the hostile vessel with practiced efficiency. He used cover. He moved unpredictably. He struck from unexpected angles. Within minutes, he'd cleared the entire ship. See, he said, emerging from the simulation. It's not about being human. It's about remembering what your species was before civilization, before rules, before safety. That part of you still exists. You just need to access it. The Vryn soldiers tried again. This time, they moved differently, more aggressive, more confident. They completed the simulation successfully. Good, Hyunsik said. You're learning. The galaxy needs warriors again. Not because we want war, but because strength prevents war. Engineer Youngmi stood in a massive shipyard orbiting Earth. Around her, the next generation of coalition ships was being built. They incorporated the best of both worlds, alien technology and human tactics. A Taurian engineer approached her, his crystalline surface reflecting the construction lights. These designs are revolutionary. Energy shields combined with kinetic weapons, speed combined with armor. You've merged our approaches perfectly. That's because both approaches have value, Youngmi replied. Your species builds for efficiency and elegance. Ours builds for survival and effectiveness. Together, we build something better. Do you think we'll need these ships? It's been 5 years of peace. We have peace because we have these ships, Youngmi corrected. The galaxy knows we're ready, that we're capable, that we'll respond to threats. That's what maintains peace. She looked out at the construction. Besides, peace is fragile. It requires constant maintenance, like these ships. On New Jeju, the colony had been completely rebuilt. Minna stood in her garden watching her children play. They were older now, but they still remembered the harvester attack. They still remembered being rescued. Her eldest daughter approached. Mom, teacher says humanity changed the galaxy. Is that true? Yes, Minna replied. How? We reminded everyone that kindness and strength aren't opposites, that you can be gentle and fierce, that protecting people you love isn't wrong, it's necessary. Are we still dangerous? Minna knelt down to look her daughter in the eyes. We're human. We're from Earth. We survived everything our planet threw at us. So yes, we're dangerous, but we're only dangerous to those who threaten us or others who can't protect themselves. So we're like guardians? Exactly like guardians. We protect, we help. We teach. But if someone threatens the innocent, Mena didn't finish the sentence. Her daughter nodded. She understood. Every human child understood now. They were taught their history, their nature, their responsibility. On the memorial wall in New Jeju's Central Plaza, 40,000 names were carved in stone. Above them, words that had become humanity's new motto: "We are kind until we cannot afford to be." Admiral Sungmin sat in his office on Earth, reading reports from across the galaxy. Crime was down. Piracy was almost eliminated. Slavery had collapsed. 3 attempted invasions by hostile forces had been stopped before they even began. Ambassador Ji-won's face appeared on his screen. "Admiral, we have a situation. An unknown fleet has entered Coalition space from outside the galaxy. They're not responding to communications. They appear hostile." Size? Large. Estimates suggest 10,000 ships. Technology we've never seen before. They're heading toward the core worlds. Sungmin felt his pulse quicken. This was the scenario they'd planned for, prepared for. The reason they'd built the fleet. The reason they'd trained the forces. "Mobilize all available assets. I want every human ship and every Coalition Defense Force vessel in position within 6 hours." Already in progress, Taeho is coordinating the fleet response. Good. Send the unknown fleet our standard warning. Show them what happened at Gravik 9. Make sure they understand what they're approaching. The warning was sent. It included footage of the Harvester War, data on human capabilities. A simple message: this is Coalition space. We are protected by Earth. Choose peace or face consequences. 6 hours later, the unknown fleet stopped advancing. They sent a single message in return. "We understand. We request peaceful contact." The crisis was averted. Admiral Taeho's fleet stood down. The unknown species, seeing humanity's reputation and preparation, chose diplomacy over conflict. In the Coalition Council chambers, Councillor Therix addressed the assembly. 5 years ago, I opposed giving humans power in this council. I was wrong. They've brought stability we haven't seen in centuries. Crime is down. Conflicts are resolved faster. Fear of human retaliation has created a galactic peace. Peace through strength, Ji-won observed. Yes, though I wonder if future generations will understand. Will they remember why we need this strength? Or will they grow soft and forget? They'll remember, Ji-won assured him, because we'll teach them. Every generation. We'll tell them about the harvesters, about New Jeju, about the day humans went fierce, not to glorify war, but to remember why we avoid it. Across the galaxy, the phrase, "Don't anger the Deathworlders," had become a proverb. A warning. A promise. Humans had become the galaxy's protectors, not through conquest, but through demonstrated capability, not through aggression, but through the memory of what they could do when necessary. Dr. Hyojin gave her final lecture of the term at the Academy. Remember, she told her students, humanity's greatest strength isn't our ability to fight. It's our ability to choose. We can be gentle healers or fierce warriors. We can build or destroy. We can nurture or eliminate. That choice is what makes us human. And it's a choice every species must make. A student asked, "What if someone threatens us again? What if there's another harvester situation?" Heejin smiled. "Then you'll see what we saw 5 years ago. You'll see humans move from peaceful to fierce in an instant. You'll see the Deathworlders awaken. And whoever threatened you will learn the lesson the harvesters learned." What lesson is that? That humans don't fight wars. We end them. The class ended. Students from a dozen species filed out, heading to their dormitories and training facilities. They'd learned tactics from human instructors, strategy from human commanders, but most importantly, they'd learned restraint. They'd learned that true strength was choosing not to use it. On Earth, in the ancient city of Seoul, a monument had been erected. It showed a human soldier kneeling before a child, offering protection. The inscription read, "In memory of the day we remembered what we are. May we never forget. May we never need to prove it again." The galaxy was at peace. A peace maintained by the memory of what happened when you pushed humans too far. A peace protected by species who understood the cost of war. And in the dark spaces between stars, humanity's ships patrolled silently, watching, waiting, hoping they'd never need to show the galaxy their true strength again, but ready if they must. Because they were human. They were Deathworlders. And the galaxy still remembered the day they went fierce.